sure how well it's going out in Minnesota. You know, we covered this on AM Update this morning where he sent Tom Homan out there, and Tom Homan says, okay, the preliminary meetings went well. He met with Governor Walz, who said, okay, you'll get the full cooperation of Minnesota. And he wrote this piece in the Wall Street Journal saying, we already cooperate with ICE at the state level, which is a way of skirting the real issue because they don't cooperate with ICE at the county or city level. And the whole issue here is Minneapolis, which is a sanctuary city and doesn't cooperate with ICE at all. So ICE is now making these demands. The White House is making these demands. Cooperate with us. Give us the guys who are getting released from jail who are illegals. Give us the guys who get arrested and are like in the holding cells who are illegal. Work with us to arrest illegals on whom we have an ICE detainer, and let us know, right, if you guys get anybody in custody with an ICE detainer. All of that is barred by Minneapolis's sanctuary city policies. Like, it's a no, because they're a sanctuary city, and Mayor Frey is not going to reverse that. I don't even know if he can reverse that because it's policy there. And so now today, President Trump comes out and says, well, could somebody please explain to Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, who said he's not going to help us in enforcing federal immigration law, that's against the law? Well, I mean, we're back at square one. We know that. It's called a sanctuary city. They're very fucking annoying. They're the reason we're having all these problems. What it tells me, as we reported in this morning AM Update, is the mayor hasn't budged 1 inch. They want Noem gone. They wanted Bovino gone. Eventually, they're going to say they want Homan gone. They're saying, fine, you can send Homan here, but they haven't done a thing. So Walz is in the Wall Street Journal saying, oh, well, we cooperate at the state level. Well, that's not what they've been asking for. This is like a fig leaf. It feels like no progress has been made, and it kind of feels like no progress will be made. Meantime, they're storming the Minneapolis Capitol building, demanding every single ICE agent be removed, all 2,000 to 3,000 of them. And now the MAGA base is looking at Trump saying, did you bend? Are you bending? Like, don't bend. And Trump, of course, is saying, no, I will never bend. But how are we working with these fools who aren't budging 1 inch on the very thing that made us send ICE there to begin with?
So this is partially what's been so frustrating, is that if Jacob Frey and Tim Walz wanted to do their part in a de-escalation effort, and Democrats in the state of Minnesota writ large, they could be saying, all right, let's rethink these policies, because we've seen the examples coming out of Minnesota. There are people who leave the county jails, the city jails, and they have records. They've been convicted of things in the past. They are non-citizens. So every crime they commit in Minnesota, the people of Minnesota are dealing with preventable crimes. 100% of non-citizen crime is preventable. And so if they wanted to do their part, they could be out there leading with policies that would change it. But actually what Jacob Frey posted, I was just looking it up on X the other day, was that this was in his thread after he talked to Donald Trump. This is, I think, a truly remarkable quote from him. He says, violent criminals should be held accountable based on the crimes they commit, not based on where they're from. Which is just a slap in the face to citizens. Even liberal citizens, progressive citizens, that's a slap in your face.
Where is this going to go? Because truly, Minneapolis, what President Trump is basically asking Minneapolis is to reverse its sanctuary city status. They're not going to do that. Right. They're just not. I mean, the sanctuary city of Minneapolis, the policy is we don't have to help the feds do a thing on immigration enforcement. And that's basically, he's correct. Like, they can't interfere as a city with federal immigration enforcement. It is not okay for the government of Minneapolis to try to thwart ICE enforcement, but they don't actually have to help, right? And then now President Trump can use carrots and sticks to try to make them help, but it's not, as far as I understand, technically illegal for them not to help. It's a federal enforcement obligation. This is why states like Texas got in trouble in the Joe Biden years when they tried to pass laws that were more stringent than the feds had. And the U.S. Supreme Court said, you can't do that, unfortunately, because this is a federal responsibility. Now Trump's doing his duty, trying to enforce that federal responsibility. But Minneapolis cannot be made to help. And we're asking for such minor help. We're basically saying if there's someone in prison for committing a crime who's also an illegal and they serve their time and you're about to release them out on the streets, please call us. We have a federal ICE detainer on them. Call us so we can just eject them back to El Salvador. And also, if you pull over somebody for DWI and they're in jail as opposed to prison, like they're just in the holding cell prior to a trial and all that, and they've got a federal ICE detainer on them because they're an illegal, please call us because we like to deport them. And then there's this third piece, which is if we have an ICE detainer on someone who has not yet been apprehended in Minneapolis, who either has an additional crime he's wanted for or not, please help us find him. And they are not going to help with any of that, Emily. They haven't been helping with any of that because of their sanctuary city status, and they're not going to. Mm-hmm. Do you see Mayor Fry giving up any of those?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And this is another point where he says violent criminals should be held accountable based on the crimes they commit, not based on where they're from. He's also saying that about plain criminals, because that's what's happening. You have people coming out of the county and city jails, and they've put their foot down over and over again over the course of years now in sanctuary jurisdictions around the country. They're absolutely not budging. And my sense is that what we've seen from the administration over the last 48, 72 hours is a kind of reckoning with the reality that the sanctuary cities have not been pressured in the court of public opinion, because I think a lot of people forget or don't even know how wealthy and deep blue the Minneapolis area is. If you're not from the Midwest, I think people don't fully realize that is like a magnet for hardened progressives from around the area, and they make really good money. There are a ton of corporate headquarters in the Minneapolis area. So this is like the Democratic Party's new Trump era base. That is where they are. They're in places like Minneapolis and its suburbs. And so there's not going to be political momentum. The Daily Mail was out with a poll today that found actually the plurality of people blame the administration for the chaos in Minneapolis rather than blaming the anti-ICE protesters or Jacob Fry and Tim Walz. So when you see something like that happening, I think Donald Trump has pretty good political instincts and is realizing that there just needs to be a new approach, because basically the court of public opinion is going against them. Whether or not we think that's fair, it's what's happening, and mm-hmm. Fry isn't going to budge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to say Tom Homan will solve this, but I'm not sure he's going to, because if this is even if the new White House approach is, okay, we'll just focus on the ones who are also criminals for another reason. Mm-hmm. They didn't just violate immigration law, they committed another crime. Fry is not going to help him with those either. And so maybe there's some rural counties that aren't sanctuary in Minnesota. I don't know, but that's not going to get her done. So I'm not really sure where this is going. I understand why the MAGA hardliners are like, you're going to have to surge. You actually are going to have to consider Insurrection Act. There's no way of fulfilling this mission that doesn't involve doubling or tripling down, because the foot little lighter on the gas pedal approach is not going to do a thing in Minneapolis. Not one thing. They won't help you. This mayor will not help, and neither will the mayor of St. Paul or the other major cities in Minnesota. So Governor Walz can say all he wants that Minnesota isn't technically a sanctuary state. That's true, but it has tons of sanctuary policies. The issue is these big cities. A new year means new financial goals, like making sure your savings are secure and diversified. Will this be the year you decide to talk to someone from Birch Gold Group? They use an educational approach with a deep understanding of macroeconomics. There are forces pushing the dollar lower and gold higher, which is why they believe every American should own physical gold. So until January 30th, if you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start the process, just text MK to the number 989898. Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you are still eligible for a rebate of up to $10,000. Consider making right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate up to $10,000 when you buy by January 30th. Text MK to the number 989898. Claim your eligibility today. Again, just text MK to the number 989898. And in the meantime, Emily, there's a report today that now Democrats are considering a bill that would require a judicial criminal warrant for any ICE arrest. So in other words, they want to require a federal judge to have to sign a warrant for the arrest of any illegal, or they're not going to, or they can't be arrested, which would basically mean amnesty for every single illegal in America who hasn't committed an additional crime. That's insane. I mean, thank God it will never pass. I mean, the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House right now, but it's a poison pill, and they're trying to tack it on here in like the latest spending bill. They basically want to do anything they can to sort of queer the latest round of spending and to say, we're not going to fund ICE because even though we said we would fund this spending bill, we don't want them getting more money. Oh, and by the way, okay, we'll do it just as long as you agree no more arrests of any illegals unless they've committed additional felonies. I mean, like, they're going so radically left on it that they're risking turning those poll numbers, which have now turned in their favor, back around the other way.
That is exactly the pattern that happened during the first Trump administration. We started to see abolish ICE catch wind on the Democratic side. And when that happened, Biden wildly overplayed the party's hand. But that's because what they ultimately want, their limiting principle, is amnesty or pathway to citizenship or open borders. Now, some of the far left anti-ICE activists are just open borders people. If you go to the Minnesota ICE Watch Instagram page, they're against colonialism. Okay, well, that's basically you saying that you're as far left as can be and likely just don't believe in the concept of nation-state borders, which is a different argument than what most of the country wants to see implemented with this surge that we're still dealing with from the Biden era, where you had an average, according to the New York Times, of like 2.4 million people. I think that's a low estimate coming in every single year. And these are magnet policies for that. When Joe Biden started giving people these long asylum waiting periods where their hearings would be 3-5 years in the future. And I was looking at some of the paperwork myself down in Texas at the time. That was a magnet. It drew people there. The sanctuary cities and jurisdictions are one of the magnets that is preventing people from self-deporting, even though the Trump administration has, this has been their best immigration policy, a robust self-deportation program that is more than fair. Well, why aren't people doing that? In some cases, because they believe they're going to be protected from deportation in sanctuary cities where every time ICE tries to make an arrest, there are whistles blowing, the works are being totally gummed up. The reason, by the way, that immigration policy is federal is because the people of Minnesota are just as vulnerable as Laken Riley was. That guy came from New York. The man who killed Laken Riley came from New York. And went to Georgia. That's why immigration policy is federal, because we have a national border. Yes, we have state borders, but people come into the country. They come into the United States, and our federal immigration law is what counts in that case, because the people of Minnesota, or the people of Minnesota, the people of their neighboring states where any of these people could go, where these migrants could go to, deserve to be protected. And Trump was democratically elected. People hate it. He was democratically elected. Either way, it doesn't matter if you hate it. He's there, and he still has a mandate to deal with immigration. So I don't know, Megyn. I think Kristi Noem is genuinely vulnerable right now, because some of what the reckoning with this public opinion, the court of public opinion might be, is that the aggressive public relations media approach was distracting from substance on the ground. That's my sense of where people within the internal tug of war are going in the administration.
To me, Kristi Noem committed the same sin that Pam Bondi did, which is she got on TV and overstated what was real, what we actually knew, what was actually happening behind the scenes. Pam Bondi, the Epstein client list is on my desk. No, it wasn't. You know, I've got tens of thousands of videos of him with child pornography, making it sound like it was Epstein, you know, with child pornography as opposed to like commercial child pornography that he was looking at on his computer. None of it's good. I'm just saying her language around it was very loose, and she misstated a bunch of things. And we still don't totally understand what happened there, and then came out and underdelivered. And Kristi Noem, her sin was even more serious, though, you know, let's face it, Epstein was like at a fever pitch, so it was extremely volatile for Pam Bondi to comment on it in the way she did. But Kristi Noem's talking about life or death situations where we're talking about our federal government killing American citizens. So you, if anything, you want to be really careful in what you say. And I believe Kristi Noem's motivation was okay, I was told this by some Border Patrol guy, and I want to run cover for my guys, before the narrative spins out against them. But unfortunately, you can't do that by running with made up facts before you know what's real. And the stuff about, Petty or Pretty, brandishing a weapon and wanting to kill law enforcement and being a domestic terrorist. Now that last one actually is still up for debate. We're learning more about Pretty. But those other statements were not supported at all. And so she made herself look like a liar, which means she made DHS look like liars, which means she made the Customs and Border Patrol guys look even worse than they did, just from the shooting alone. I mean, it really is, it is a scandal. There's no question. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.